Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview and prediction for Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin 2. This fight goes down on the 27th of March. It is on Sky Sports pay-per-view in the UK and DAZN in the USA. And this fight actually is taking place in Gibraltar. Now I have to say I'm really looking forward to this rematch. Obviously first time around Alexander Povetkin knocked out Dillian Whyte. We all know how it went. Dillian Whyte was winning the fight, he had Povetkin down a couple of times, and then in round 5, Povetkin uncorked a beautiful left uppercut which knocked out Dillian Whyte. And, given how the fight was playing out, it was a bit of a shock, I guess. And going into this rematch, it really is high stakes. If Dillian Whyte were to lose again to Alexander Povetkin, he can kiss his title aspirations goodbye for a long time at least. And if Povetkin loses at 41 years old, he's basically done at the highest level. So it's high stakes for both guys going into this rematch. This fight is detrimental to their future careers in the heavyweight division, potentially anyway. And yeah, I always like these high stakes fights, I really do. And listen, first fight as well, for as long as it lasted, was a really fun fight, and I expect the second fight to be the same, to be honest. Both Dillian Whyte and Povetkin are naturally exciting heavyweights with power. Both guys have that knockout punch, and if you put these guys in the ring together, I think it's always going to make for a good fight. So no matter how this rematch goes, I am anticipating an exciting fight again. But yeah, let's briefly run through the tale of the tape. We shall start with Alexander Povetkin. He has a record of 36 wins, 2 defeats, 1 draw. 25 of those 36 wins coming by way of knockout. Dillian Whyte has a record of 27 wins and 2 defeats. 18 of his 29 wins coming by way of knockout. Alexander Povetkin is listed as 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, whereas Dillian Whyte, he is listed as 6'4" with a 78-inch reach. So Dillian Whyte has the height and reach advantage, as we already knew. 2 inches in height and 3 inches in reach. Could that be a factor on fight night? Potentially, but that obviously, depends on how Dillian Whyte approaches this fight. But, Povetkin is 41 years old and Dillian Whyte is 32 years old. And both guys, of course, are orthodox fighters. Just briefly on the age of both guys, Povetkin being 41 years old, at some point the wheels are going to fall off with Alexander Povetkin. Despite him winning the first fight, I have to say, and I said this at the time, prior to the knockout, I felt Povetkin, while he was having some success, particularly in the first 2 rounds to the body, I felt Povetkin looked as bad as I've ever seen him. His legs looked weak, his punch resistance didn't seem the same, and all in all, he just looked like a lesser version of himself due to the age. And yeah, going into this rematch, Povetkin's just got that bit much older. Obviously, he's been out with that virus as well, of course. How has that affected him? So the age of Povetkin going into this fight certainly is a big factor. But yeah, now the tale of the tape is out of the way. Let's briefly talk about the fight itself, what both guys should do, and just my brief thoughts on it, and then I'll make my prediction. One thing I have to say that I am happy with in regards to Dillian Whyte going into this rematch is that Dillian Whyte seems focused on Alexander Povetkin. If you remember, prior to the first fight, one concern I had with Dillian Whyte going into that first fight was the fact that he was talking about anybody and everybody apart from Alexander Povetkin. He was talking about Fury, Wilder, Anthony Joshua. He was obviously talking about his WBC situation. He was discussing everything apart from Alexander Povetkin, and it gave me the impression that he was just expecting to walk through Povetkin, and basically that he saw him as an old man and didn't see him as a threat. I said that going into that first fight, that the mindset from Dillian Whyte to me wasn't right, because despite Povetkin being past his best, and significantly past his best, he is still dangerous. He still has that amateur pedigree, timing, and obviously the guy can really, really punch. So going into this rematch, I've not heard the same sort of sentiment from Dillian Whyte. He seems to have locked himself away focusing on this rematch, and that's what he needs to do against a dangerous guy like Povetkin, as he found out first time around. So that's one good thing going into this fight in regards to Dillian Whyte. But in regards to his approach in this one, I've heard a whole host of ideas and theories on how Dillian should approach this fight. Some are saying that he should box on the back foot behind the jab and keep Povetkin at distance. Listen, that could potentially work against Povetkin, especially an older Povetkin who doesn't have the legs he once had and the explosiveness that he once had. That could definitely work, Dillian sticking and moving and boxing. It could work, but the thing with Dillian Whyte, he's a late starter to boxing and he's extremely raw. And also his temperament isn't exactly the greatest. I think Dillian Whyte boxing for 12 rounds, I actually believe that's quite risky. Dillian Whyte naturally is not a boxer, in my opinion. He's not like a technical outboxer. Him doing that for 12 rounds, I think would guarantee that he makes mistakes at certain points and leaves openings for Povetkin to explode and land those hard shots. Like I said, yeah, Dillian's got a decent jab, but he's not a natural boxer. He makes a lot of technical mistakes with his feet, with his balance, with his positioning, etc. and his distance control. I think him trying to box for 12 rounds would inevitably lead to him making mistakes and giving Povetkin an opportunity to land those hard shots. So I think boxing for 12 rounds on the back foot might be a little bit risky. Even against Oscar Rivas, when he did that, I mean, he had some hard moments in that fight and he got dropped. You know, Dillian's not a defensive mastermind. He makes a lot of mistakes, and giving Povetkin too much respect could be the worst idea possible. I think the key here for Dillian Whyte is to maintain the range and distance, but you can't. There's not only one way to do that. You don't just do that by going backwards behind a jab. You can do that coming forwards behind a jab. I want to see Dillian Whyte deploy a really nice tight high guard. Basically, I want to see him try and walk Povetkin down behind that jab. Povetkin off a back foot to me is not as comfortable as he is when he's sitting in the pocket when you're stationary. When you're forcing Povetkin backwards, he's nowhere near as effective, as we saw in the Ruslan Shagayev fight, as we saw in the Marco Huck fight, for example. When you actually fire at this guy, push him back, first and foremost, he doesn't generate the same power in his counter punches, and he's just not as effective in general. So I want to see Dillian Whyte actually be aggressive in this fight. I know that sounds crazy considering what happened first time around, but I want to see Dillian tuck up, shell up, keep a good shape, nice high guard, nice tight guard, and come marauding forwards and ramming that jab down Povetkin's throat. A consistent jab pushing this guy back. But the key for Dillian Whyte is not to hold your feet with Povetkin, square up, and then let that guy counter. You got to keep this guy moving back, keep him moving back. Don't let this guy set for punches, because in the first fight, there were times when Dillian was standing with Povetkin far too much, and he was having success, don't get me wrong, but that just gives Povetkin an opportunity to land those counter shots. Dillian Whyte standing in the pocket with Povetkin stationary is a bad idea. He needs to force Povetkin back behind a real hard jab, come in behind that jab, work that body and make it a real rough fight for Povetkin. I said Dillian should do that in the first fight. You know, that's what I thought he should do against Povetkin. I said back then, boxing with Povetkin is a risky strategy, and standing with him is also a risky strategy. But in my opinion, pushing him back could give Dillian a lot of success, especially against this version of Povetkin, who in my opinion, his punch resistance isn't what it once was. I want to see Dillian test Povetkin. He's 41 years old. Make him feel that, you know. Force him on the back foot, work the body, rough him up, keep him moving, get on top of him kind of thing. But he just can't stand square on with Povetkin stationary at mid-range or even on the inside. That's what Dillian Whyte needs to avoid. Just don't stand stationary with Povetkin. If you force him to the ropes and he's not budging, don't stay there too long. After a while, just back up, make Povetkin reset, and then apply the pressure again behind that jab. Just don't stand in front of Povetkin too long. You need to keep this guy going backwards, in my opinion. Like I say, if he's got his back against the ropes, Povetkin, and he's shelling up, maybe land a couple of shots and then get out, make him reset, and like I say, apply the pressure again. To me, Dillian needs to be aggressive in this fight, but he needs to be calculated, and he needs to know when to pick his spots, and obviously keep that nice tight guard, keep a good shape, And don't get too gung-ho with his power shots, because Dillian Whyte, he's got his right hand, while it's effective when it lands, he is very wild with it. And the last thing you want to do is swing and miss against Povetkin to allow this guy to counter. So I want to see Dillian apply pressure behind the high guard, behind a hard jab, but he needs to be economical with his power shots. Don't give Povetkin too many opportunities to counter. And I think that style for Dillian Whyte could pose for a lot of success, because that style's worked against Povetkin in the past when you watch the Shagayev fight, like I said, or the Marco Huck fight. So for me, Dillian needs to be aggressive but calculated. Again, could boxing behind a jab work? It could against this version of Povetkin. I'm not saying it can't work. I just see that strategy as really risky, to be honest, given what we know about Dillian Whyte. His balance, his defense, sometimes his distance control isn't the best. I wouldn't necessarily trust Dillian to box on the back foot for 12 rounds without making some serious mistakes. But yeah, that's how I would. That's what I would do if I was Dillian Whyte. That's what I'd be advising him. To be honest, I'd advise him to be aggressive. I know a lot of you guys might disagree, given how the first fight played out, but that's just my opinion. And when Dillian Whyte got knocked out in the first fight, it wasn't Dillian pushing Povetkin back and he walked onto something. No, he was standing stationary with Povetkin, and he gave Povetkin the opportunity to land that shot, So we'll see, but I think Dillian needs to be aggressive. As for Alexander Povetkin, he's got the psychological edge in this fight. He knows he can knock out Dillian Whyte. He knows he can take some stick from Dillian Whyte. He can take his shots and get up, and he knows he can knock him out. For me, Povetkin ultimately needs to do Povetkin, basically. Povetkin's a guy with exceptional timing, great accuracy and power. And Dillian Whyte, he makes a lot of mistakes, like I said earlier, defensively. His accuracy sometimes is pretty poor. He throws the right hand and throws himself off balance. Same with the left hook. And obviously Povetkin needs to be watching out for those opportunities. He's an astute counterpuncher, so when they happen, I'm sure Povetkin will try and take advantage of that. But, in particular, that right hand from Dillian Whyte, it can be wild, and he does throw himself off balance. That's the perfect tone for Povetkin's left hook, which is one of his best punches. So yeah, Povetkin basically needs, in my opinion, he needs to look for that one perfect shot again, where he knocks out Dillian Whyte, or at least hurts Dillian Whyte, and then he can jump on him and finish him. I don't think Povetkin can win this fight on points, given his age, given his stamina these days, and given the fact that this is on a Matchroom show which looks after Dillian Whyte. So yeah, Povetkin needs to look for that one perfect shot. He basically needs to be himself. I can't really say what Povetkin needs to do. I think we all know going into this fight what he needs to do. One thing I will say though, one thing Povetkin didn't get credit for in that first fight, particularly in the first 2 rounds, was the body work. He was actually landing some real nice body shots against Dillian Whyte in the first 2 rounds, and even throughout that fight. And I think that's another avenue for success, because in the first fight, the body work in the first couple of rounds basically set up the knockout in round 5. Povetkin feinted a body shot in round 5, and obviously Dillian Whyte dropped his guard to try and block that body shot, but obviously Povetkin wasn't throwing a body shot, and he came up with the uppercut and knocked out Dillian Whyte. That early body work again in this fight, not only could it deplete Dillian and drain his gas tank, but also that can definitely set up power shots to the head later on in the fight. If you get Dillian reacting to those body shots and then fake a body shot and then come up the middle with the uppercut again, or an overhand right or a left hook, the body work not only is very effective at draining Dillian Whyte, but as we saw in the first fight, it could also be effective in setting up power shots to the head later on in the fight. But yeah, Povetkin for me needs to just look for that one perfect shot. He needs to try and time Dillian and hurt him or knock him out, basically. That's what Povetkin needs to do, quite frankly. And yeah, very intriguing fight. A lot on the line for both guys. Povetkin loses, he's not going to fight for a title again at 41 years old. And if Dillian Whyte loses, I'm not saying he won't fight for a title, but it would be a long, long road to come back from. So there's a lot on the line here, and it's a great, great fight. I cannot wait for this one. Funnily enough, I'm actually looking forward to this rematch more than the first fight. I liked the first fight, actually. A lot of people were complaining about it back then, but I liked it. But I'm even more into this rematch for whatever reason. I'm really excited for it. But enough of the jibber jabber. You guys want my prediction. I'm actually going to go with Dillian Whyte avenging his defeat last August. And I'm going to go with Dillian Whyte by late stoppage. I think this time around he won't let Povetkin off the hook if he hurts him. And I think ultimately the younger man will prevail in this fight. I think Povetkin probably has sung his last hurrah, I guess. And I think Dillian Whyte's going to finish Povetkin in this fight late on. But again, not confident. Just like I wasn't confident in my pick first time around when they first fought. In fact, I picked Dillian Whyte to win the fight first time around, but I made a betting video on the week of the fight and I said, despite me picking Dillian Whyte, the odds on Povetkin are far too good and he's got a legitimate chance of winning that fight. And I said to you guys, the odds on Povetkin were too good to pass up. I bet on Povetkin, so I made a bit of money first time around. I probably will bet on Povetkin again. I'll see nearer the time, but yeah, I was unsure on the first fight. I'm unsure on the second fight, but my official prediction is Dillian Whyte by late stoppage. But anyway, I want you guys to share your thoughts below. What do you make of this rematch? Who are you picking? Who are you picking and how? Knockout, points, Povetkin, Whyte? Are you going to go for a draw? Share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, smash the like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. But until next time, peace.